Chairman. Thank you to our colleagues here. You've got a big job to do, and I certainly admire your willingness and certainly the capability to do the job. Let me reference a specific scenario that reflects a larger concern that I have. And Mr. Walls, you're probably aware of this. Geographically, the Black Hills healthcare system there's a lot of controversy there with some decisions that the central folks at the VA have chosen to make. I fear that it's reflective of a larger issue, and that's the care for veterans in rural areas. We know that it's not always more expensive. You know, sometimes more resources are needed for rural areas, but just perhaps a reflection on the unique needs of rural areas. So would you say that your committee is well suited, given the resources and so forth, for oversight of rural concerns, and anything that we should be aware of relating to that?
Well, I think a couple of things, and thank you for the question. I live in rural America, and certainly I know you do in your district, and it creates a challenge when people are spread, a few people are spread over broad areas. It's one of the reasons that we have to make the choice program work, and in October, I went to Lubbock, Texas, and also to the Yakima Valley in Washington, and Dan Newhouse's district goes from the Canadian border all the way down to the Oregon border. So he has a huge rural area, and we need that choice program to work, and the choice program will be where a veteran, and I absolutely believe this in the core of me, to make the VA work better, I think you have to have the veteran in charge of healthcare decisions. And when you do that, you put that veteran in charge with their card so that they can choose where they go see their primary care doctor and initiate their care. And back to your question a minute ago, one of the things that the VA does on technology is that they have stored all this information on site in a server at a particular hospital. If it were cloud-based, you would have everybody would have access to it, and now we don't. And it's siloed, the information is. But rural America, where I live, making sure veterans get care there is absolutely essential. And that's one of the reasons we need a healthcare a technician, someone can actually look in that and make sure and investigate along those means. It will help us. And if you have any particular issues or just examples of where a veteran's not getting that, please, members, bring them to us. It helps us figure out what to do.
I would hope that, like you said, veterans themselves can be heard on these issues, because they feel they're not being heard.
Mr. Smith, and I think your question is exactly right. You know this well, that 15% of our population of this country statistically live in rural areas. 43% of our veterans live there. That's just the nature. I would argue it's cultural, and it's a sense of duty that sometimes emanates from our areas. Your Hot Springs area I'm very familiar with, and I do think the committee is well versed for that, and I think that's what's driving some of the innovation to deliver care. No one's saying get rid of the core mission of the VA. No one's saying get rid of the polytrauma or burn centers, but we are saying for that veteran that's living in Gering or Scotts Bluff that it might make more sense for them to be able to figure out how they can manage their care there, going up to Hot Springs when they need to, and possibly an inpatient facility with 75 beds in Hot Springs that was well suited for post-World War II might be better incorporated into the local hospital up there with a wing that has a VA symbol on it, and that's how we do it. Those are tough decisions that we're going to talk about, but it's one that has already been brought to our attention. Your neighbors, Senator Thune and Ms. Noem, have already been on it. And as I would end with a point of personal privilege, Mr. Smith is my mother's congressman, and she oftentimes says it's a good thing I don't live back there. It would be very difficult for her. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
The gentleman yields back.